Hey there, Stampers, and welcome to a technique tutorial. This is something I call the dry Aqua Painter. I developed this, I started doing this when I saw these beautiful images colored with a fancy marker that was so beautifully blended, and they are great markers. I just can't afford to invest in them. So I wanted to use what I had, and I have the Stampin UP markers that I love, and they match everything, so it's even better. So I do what's called a dry Aqua Painter. So my Aqua Painter is empty. There is no water in the barrel, but I keep a little medicine cup with water, and I dip it like you would a paintbrush, and I just dip it in the tip, and I squeeze it out with my fingers. And I just keep doing this. You don't want the brush, you want it wet enough that the color flows and blends, but you don't want it so wet that it, blurs out. I don't know how to describe it, but so I keep pinching it, and I'll often use the back of my hand and angle it, and you can see how much water's coming out by the way the light catches it, and also the feel. So once I get it to the way I like it, I use this little palette, and I put some ink on it, and I'm using Pear Pizzazz, Baja Breeze, and Early Espresso. This is a card I made on Monday for Mojo Monday, and I thought while I was doing it, I thought, ooh, this stamp, which is Happiness Shared, is a great stamp for people to learn how to do this. There's a little bit of a learning curve, but not much. So you get the brush wet, but not too wet. And that's one of those things you'll just have to practice. You want the colors to blend but not blur. So I'm going to start with the Pear Pizzazz, and when I'm picking up the ink, I sort of just roll the brush to a point, and I'm going to start in the shaded areas that the artist has already indicated will be darker. So I'm just laying down the color in short little strokes, just mimicking the lines that the artist has already provided. And that is going to allow, when I come back and do a wash of color over the other areas, it'll make this part more intense, and it will help lend to that natural shading that the artist has indicated. So I'm going to do this on the leaves, and while that is, I'm going around just to the parts that are lined. That means that these other areas are drying. It doesn't take very long, but that will help prevent the blending, bleeding kind of thing. So when we come back, it's going to be a thinner wash of color. So just short little lines, just like they have done on the stamp. And in the direction too. I guess it doesn't so much matter the direction, but I tend to just follow what they've already done, since they're the experts, and it looks pretty darn good to my eye. I've never done a kind of a close-up video like this, so I'm hoping that the autofocus isn't going crazy back and forth. I can't tell. So hopefully this works. And there's all the green. So we're going to dip in the water and just add, it's wet, I just dipped it in the water, and I'm just going to kind of just move it all around, maybe a little bit more water. That might be too wet, but we'll see. We'll start in a larger area that's been dried. So this is I'm going to go ahead and start, in case there's a lot of ink, start in the darker areas, and then you're just adding this wash of color to the areas that we left white. And you can see it is doing, I think it's doing exactly what the artist intended, to give you the 2 or 3 different tones of color on the image. This one I think you can see the best because it has the least area of the darker, has a large white space, in other words. And it may not look like it's very well blended right now, but as it dries, it will blend better. And there won't be such a contrast. It'll look more like it does in nature. And you can always go back. See, this one's dry. And I think it looks really good. So then I clean the brush and squeeze it out well. And then I'm going to start with the blue, and I'm going to do the exact same process. I'm kind of rolling my brush, bringing it to a point, and I'm going to start in the areas that the artist has indicated. And even on this one, I don't know if it matters at all, but I sort of even mimic the way they do it. So in this case, it's a crosshatch, and I kind of mimic laying the color down just as they have indicated in a crosshatch. I really don't know if it makes a difference, but no crosshatch here, so I'm just laying down the lines. And pulling it. This is a definitely darker area than this. This is lighter markings. So I won't pick up more ink. I'll just use what's left over from doing this darker area. And then this is also a darker area, so I re-inked. I came back in, and this is a lighter area, so I won't re-ink. All of these are pretty light. So it helps with, you don't have to really figure out the intensity of the color either. They've already done this for you. You can see on these lighter lines, I didn't re-ink at all. I just used what was left on the brush. And so it'll help. Anyway, so then I'm going to pick up a little water. I'm going to try and let that dry a little bit. And now we're going to do just the wash of color over the areas. I'm trying to remember where I started. I think I started here. So just come in and wash the color over the entire petal, and the same here. And you can see it's pretty light. Again, because this, the darkened areas, the shadows, are much lighter than over here, I didn't re-ink this area. So even when I'm putting in the wash of color, I'm sort of paying attention to what the artist has done with the intensity of color. I hope that makes sense. And then cut back in here. That's basically finished, but I would like a little deeper blue. So I'm going to come back in with a second layer, and you can see already it, and I start in the shadow area and then pull it out to the highlight area. I like a little more, this is kind of a soft blue anyway. And I love the way this Baja Breeze looks with pear. I think they have a similar tonal quality and they look lovely together. So if I add too much more, this is pretty wet, it's going to start to blur. And I don't, that's the other thing, I don't use, you can certainly use watercolor paper, but I just use Whisper White. That was the other thing, I love Whisper White. It is the best paper out there that you can paint on it like this, and it's not a water, it's just fabulous. So now I'm going to pick up a little early espresso. That's pretty light, but for these branches it'll be perfect. Just a light wash of color. I don't want the intense early espresso color, just for the branches and this little stem right here. But then I'm going to come back in, I'm going to squeeze out my brush. I'm not going to dip it to clean it because I'm still using the early espresso. I'm just going to really kind of take out some of that water, pick up a little more early espresso, and you can see how much darker and intense it gets right there. that's basically what I do, and I hope some of you will try it and that you find it helpful and a way to use what you already have. Thanks for tuning in. Bye.